It is alive. Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to ADRAMADA. You found it. ADRAMADA, another day Rush Ask Me Anything. Digital Alchemy, come for the shirt. Stay for the news and the project. And I am your host, Dave Rush. You are the proud ADRAMADA Armada. And thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us live, catching us later. We're getting more and more traffic on the laters because, we took about a half a year. I took about a half a year off last year for all kinds of dumb reasons. But we're back and we have been consistently doing shows, I beg your pardon, for weeks now. And today is the beginning of a really good program. I have worked on it all week as far as the experiments and everything. And today was Make Graphic Day. There's a lot of graphics. There's a lot going on in this thing. And I didn't make much headway. So what we're going to do today is a 30,000 foot overview using sock puppets and interpretive dance. And I'm going to kind of lay out the project and what could, would, should be done in sort of a block format. And then next week, we'll get into hands-on nitty-gritty, do some software, do some wiring and stuff like that. The project itself is, man, I've had a clear voice all day. Suddenly, it's how to use a Raspberry Pi or any other computer that supports the software to be a network firewall. Yeah, we all have firewalls in our standalone systems, our network individual systems. But wouldn't it be cool if you didn't have to do that, or if you only had to do that for some weird special stuff on your machine, and there was one box generally taking care of everything and everybody else in the network. So that's the goal today. So what we got going on today means that it's going to be project one, not too long of a show, but I've got a lot of other pre-prep material. Goodness gracious. And so let's get started. First of all, I hope you had a great Valentine's Day this past weekend. Knowing how the restaurants are and everything like that, we celebrated Valentine's Day a day early on Friday. Still, we weren't the only ones. There was lines everywhere. There's always in Friday night restaurants lines no matter how you slice it. But add to it a love weekend holiday, and you know how that goes. But we did have a very nice time, and the kid came into town because friends of his got married on Saturday, Valentine's Day. They had to bring in their officiant from out of state. Now, wasn't that desperate, but he was an uncle. But still, Uncle Priest. I never had any relatives who were in the clergy, and I think I'm glad about that. Today, if you're not watching this live, is Monday, February 16th. It is 7 p.m. Central Time, and a couple interesting things about today. Today, one, we begin the Lunar New Year, right? The Asian and Chinese calendars and Southeast Asia and East Asian. So we have begun today the Year of the Horse. I don't know if that has any meaning for you. More power to you if it does. Maybe you're waiting around for a different Asian zodiac. Next week, besides doing part 2 of today's program, marks the 3rd anniversary of ADRAMADA. We started up again on February 23rd of 2023, having come off of Drama, which I did while I was working for another company. And so I have nothing special planned for it, but I got a week to think about that. If you have any ideas or anything you want to talk about, let's do. And the last thing for today being February 23rd, or the 3rd Monday of February, it is, in the United States, President's Day, and has been, not by that name, since 1879. U.S. officially observes George Washington's birthday at the federal government level. It's a holiday in the U.S., celebrated the third Monday of February. Originally, it was just George Washington Day, then was expanded to honor both Washington and Abraham Lincoln. It has further been extended to honor all of those who've served as presidents of the United States. And ever since 1879 has been a federal holiday, honoring technically and officially just George still. However, that's a federal holiday. There are states who aren't so interested, and states who, and even cities who are really, really interested in carrying it on. Here in my own beloved state of Texas, in Laredo, Texas, down near the valley, what we call down there, Washington is celebrated for an entire month. And I don't know if that starts today and goes for a month, or if it's all February, but whatever, there we go. By the way, while I was doing a little research on President's Day, I ran across a little article, and I didn't know this. Did you ever wonder why so many federal holidays fall on Mondays in the U.S.? Well, it turns out there's not just a coincidence. On June 28th of 1968, when I was just a little more than 5 years old, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act to provide uniform annual observances of certain legal public holidays on Mondays. Also created to provide federal employees with more 3-day weekends. So there you go. Well, let's see who's here and what you guys are up to and thinking and drinking. Interesting crowd. Okay, well, Patricia showed up right after I started making noise on here, about a half an hour before showtime. Hello, Patricia. You were hoping for a show. Your hopes and wishes have come true. I was hoping for a show, too. Following that, if you're looking for ways to get in touch with me or find me in other areas, starting about 10 minutes before showtime, I put up a bunch of links and contact information. Go get them. And I probably won't remember to do those again. Sure. It's appreciated. We are live. What's going on, says Jason. Jason, hope things are going well for you. I still have the document you sent me, and I apologize for that. I will get on that tomorrow. I have kind of a day off tomorrow. Huzzah! Yeah, Valentine's Day wedding. I was thinking about this. The good news is both people in the couple are football fans, because next year the Super Bowl is on Valentine's Day. Yes, I'm doing Ultraman tonight. There has been a spate of Ultraman AI short videos making their way across the web in the last week or two. And I didn't wear this for that reason. I wore this because it was on top of the wacky ADRAMADA show shirt pile. Well, you got to be careful when you say that, right? It's a real pile of shirts. But I thought that was kind of a nice coincidence when I saw that on top of the pile. They're doing fat Ultraman videos. It's pretty horrible, especially for those of us who love the Ultra Dude. Let's see. We rushed to an appointment at 8, thinking traffic would be heavy, and was confused for a second. Man, I hate that. That's one of the nature of the gigs that I do. I always want to get there early. On time means late in my world. But sometimes I really overdo it. I'll turn up 1 or 2 hours early. And then I don't want to sit in a parking lot with a car full of gears. I usually head in and say, any chance I can get early setup going? Most of the time they're real flexible and absolutely knock yourself out. And some of them, nope, we're not set up and ready to let you in until 8 seconds before you're supposed to be here. Had a huge gig last Wednesday and Thursday that in the end came out very well. There were challenges, there always are. I have another fairly big gig this Thursday and another gig on Friday. I don't usually get Friday gigs. This one's kind of cool. Couple dozen cities were all getting together and watching a podcast basically and doing some interactive. 26,000 scheduled viewers for this. So everybody's got to hold up their end of the bargain and all kinds of backups, and it's a really sophisticated, heavily coordinated activity. All right, everybody here, that's what's going on there. So I want to try something here. I haven't done slides with on this date in a while. And when I realized that I wasn't going to be able to make slides for project today, I thought, well, I'll just go get slides then for today is noteworthy because. So let's transition over there. I've transitioned. The top of this is cut off, but this is kind of cool. This is hanging in Westminster Abbey. This is the first known handwritten check. It was issued in Britain on this date in the year 1659. Was signed and made out for £400 by this guy to that guy and drawn on that goldsmith bank. But I thought that was kind of cool, and I went down the rabbit hole, learned a lot more about checking. And by the way, checking reached its peak in the 90s. We haven't written, you probably haven't, some of you have probably never written a check. We still write 2, maybe 3 a month for weird reasons. Checks are dead. Connects. What do we got to do here? That's weird. Where would you oh. Okay, we got away with that. Yeah, that could have been a problem. All right, back to the image slide shower. And next slide. On this day in 1923, Howard Carter opens the inner burial chamber of Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb to find this sarcophagus. And somebody got bitten by a poisonous spider that day, and hence the mythology of the cursed sarcophagus. I didn't know a lot of these, and I didn't get way back in history or way very forward. On this day in history, 1937, DuPont Corporation patents a new chemical, new molecule called, spelled differently at the time, nylon. It was Nilon back then, developed by employee Wallace Carruthers. Nylon's a very cool thing, can be made into thin, flexible strands, and they did that. They started making hosiery out of it and things like that. Can also be made into strong, solid structures. If you look inside your favorite computer and you look at the power connector on the motherboard, you look at the power connectors on your video cards, those are nylon. You make it thick enough, it gets pretty darn strong, and yet still has some flex to it. This also launched a 5-letter trade name naming convention by DuPont. There's a consonant on the ends and one in the middle, and then a vowel or a pseudo vowel in the 2nd and 4th position. So nylon fits that, you know, Y being a pseudo vowel. And how about rayon, Lexan, Tyvek, so many more. So all those things, if you see a 5-letter long chain molecular substance. And it's got 5 letters. DuPont or later Dow got their hands on that thing. Hey, I like this one. This was kind of a cool little newsy thing for me. 1968. The first 911 emergency phone system goes into service in Haleyville, Alabama, and they celebrate it to this day with their annual 911 festival. I didn't know that. Had I known that, I probably would have gone this weekend. That just seems fascinating. I see stuff. You guys are doing stuff. What are you doing? We go over here, we find out. People just greetings and smiles and grins. There he is. You forgot it was Monday. I was going to push the show to Tuesday, but then I would have had to go through all of On This Day and redo them all. That takes a while. You wouldn't think it takes that long, but especially when it comes up with coming up with slides. So I let it go. Welcome, Tullerwit. That's an interesting thing. I wondered about this. Crowns, right? We got crown number 1 and crown number 2, and they're assigned to mods. And it appears you're number 1 or number 2 based on when you appear or when you chat for the first time. Hey, mod number 1 is... So maybe that's not. I'll watch that more closely next weekend, but I paid half attention to it. I don't know what to do about this. Okay, I already did an announcement. We've got links of contacts. Went up just before the show started, and one of them is our Discord link. We have had some miscreants joining the Discord for a few seconds long enough to try and blast some spam. We have a broadly located set of mods. They are all over the world, so no matter what time of day or night, we catch this stuff really quick. It's almost kind of a race between mods to knock out. If you are watching this and you're thinking that you're going to come on and spam us, not only will you be kicked and banned, I will find you and I will come to your home and do terrible things to your pets with a fork. So knock it off. We've set up some new criteria. Unfortunately, that's kind of a pain for people who are there not to cause trouble, but it's an ugly world. And you guys are, not you guys here right now, but people who are just looking to push your Bitcoin and whatever other junk you got, not going to happen on our server. We know who you are. We know how to take care of you. So where we been? Where are we going? Last week, we toured the latest iteration of the Raspberry Pi Imager. It's getting more functional. It has a better user experience. It has broader capabilities. Every time they update it, there's something better and newer about it. And I'm really loving it. This week, we're going to do part 1 of 2 parts of using a Raspberry Pi as a firewall. And it doesn't have to be a Pi. You can do it with something else. Pi is good. It's not great. It has one limitation that if you're not talking about a big network, can be overcome pretty easily. But it's probably not great for, I don't know, network with 500 or 1,000 devices on it that are interactive. I don't care if you got a printer on it or something like that. But when we're talking about 500 interactive hosts or 1,000 hosts, there's a reason that Pi might not be our best tool. But I'll show you how to just, okay, I don't want to use a Pi. I want to use a Supermicro, or I want to use a traditional server. We're going to get into that. It's kind of cool. Today, part 1, broad 30,000 foot overview with block concepts. And because I didn't make many slides. I'm not going to use any slides. I'm going to hold things up and draw imaginary lines. That's how it goes. Yeah, Jason got the band hammer ready to rock. Now I'm seeing other stuff that confuses me. Okay. Wait a minute. Tobin, I'm not seeing your module. Let's see what's going on with you. Later. All right, back to the slideshow. Yeah, okay. That was this week's slide. And I do want to set this up a little bit. Notice that what we've got here in red is a Raspberry Pi running UFW, the uncomplicated firewall. When you use a Raspberry Pi, you can use any firewall software. When you pick your Linux machine to become a firewall, you're not using a dedicated firewall appliance like something from SonicWall or Cisco, one of their universal firewalls. You're just talking about taking a generic server or computer. You can install any firewall software that makes you happy and make it your network firewall. So that was why I like this graphic. All right, moving. This I got in an unusual location. It wasn't in any of my usual tech news sources. I'm going to tell you in brief the story of Scott Shambaugh. Shambaugh. Shambaugh is a developer. He leads a very widely used Python package called matplotlib. And like every project, like every project out there, he's getting a ton of AI-generated requests for addition. In Git, those are called pull requests. And he's implemented safeguards for both code quality and for the sake of his sanity. And one of the safeguards is he mandates that a human be involved in the loop. If somebody submits a change request, a pull, it better be a somebody, not a something. So a couple of days ago, an AI agent submits a pull request, and Shambaugh rejected it because it was just an AI agent, and that's contrary to his Git policy. And so that should be the end of it, right? No. This is where it gets nuts. The AI agent switched into full hostility mode. It reacted like a petulant, angry child. It wrote a hit piece, an angry hit piece, using, I think, Scott's words here now. It wrote an angry hit piece disparaging my character and attempting to damage my reputation. It researched my code contributions, constructed a hypocrisy narrative that argued my actions must be motivated by ego and fear of competition. It speculated about my psychological motivations, that I felt threatened, was insecure, and was protecting my fiefdom. It ignored contextual information and presented hallucinated details as a truth. No A there. It framed things in the language of oppression and justice, calling this discrimination and accusing me of prejudice. It went on to the broader internet to research my personal information, used what it found to try and argue that I was better than this. And then it posted this screed publicly on the open internet. Are you kidding me? That is stunning. It's probably not the first time. This is just the first major one that's got some press and pushback. But, yeah, I did that. Wow. I am sure that this is only the beginning. and I am equally sure that the hostility will get ramped up in certain circumstances. And I've talked about this a little bit in the past. That I am very much an anti-government, anti-regulation person. But there's time and place, and we missed the boat on pre-regulating AI, and genie's out of the bottle. Okay, moving on. Crew 12 safely arrived about a day after launch at the ISS, restoring a full crew for research. There was one U.S. guy and 2 Russian cosmonauts on board, I think. No, I won't do any jokes about it. It's our boat now, comes to mind. How about a new AI app? I question sometimes the use of the term AI, but fine, for the sake of discussion, let's just keep it, okay, there's an AI app out there that can tell, you take a picture of a dino footprint, and it can tell you, after making measurements of 7 different metrics, what dinosaur made that footprint. And maybe it found something new, and maybe not, I don't know. It came out of, this was February 1st that the article was published, out of the University of Edinburgh. And they're mysterious. And what AI looks at, the model learned to recognize 8 key features, including how far the toes are spread apart, where the heel was positioned, surface area contact with the ground, how the weight was distributed across parts of the foot. And what I really loved about this, okay, fine, I like dinosaurs, I'm the same as every kid. But what I like is, when evaluated, the algorithm matched the classifications made by human experts about 90% of the time. Okay. Then the article at some point went on to describe that experts get it right about 90% of the time. So this thing is right 81% of the time. But I gotta wonder, experts get it right 90% of the time. I do not see how they can stand on a proof that says we are right 9 out of 10 times. The other 10 times, sorry, man. Unless you were hanging around 65 plus million years ago, I'm just not buying that kind of accuracy. Consistency, knock yourself out. But yeah, Tyrannosaur. This is a better picture, but I like these. I like plaster castings of footprints because they're used to find bad guys. All right, that should be it. Yeah, it's 8 of 8. Back to me. Transition. What's going to happen when I do that? This and this. Oh, wow. Let's put that next. Scrolling down through notes. There we go. I'm where I need to be. Are you where you need to be? Oh. Okay, well, that's how it goes. Let me see something. See what's going on. Yay, Shia's here! Ooh, somebody's giving away corporate secrets. I was about to message you on Discord, wondering what happened to, okay, the Tellawit. Working on roles, so verified peeps don't have these issues. Thank you so much. Like astronomy themed roles. Gotta run it by you guys. Okay. There you go. Mod number 3 up here. Here it is. It shows me. I see it now. It wasn't there at that moment. Weird stuff. But we're here. Hi, Shia. Great to see you. Now, I have no idea what that slide of the 3-toed thing I had was. I like Tyrannosaurus jokes. I like how sad they are because of their short little arms. Because, as always, the unsettled science rule comes in, and I saw somebody recently who said, their arms aren't that short. They just look that way in bones, but they're longer, and they could scratch their toenails and comb their hair. Fine. There's been articles this week that says baby giant dinosaurs are the food of all the other dinosaurs. So brontosauruses are laying eggs or giving birth, whatever they do. They had to give a lot because they were feeding all the other dinosaurs. I don't know. All right, well, let's talk then a little bit about what we came to talk about today, and that's using a Raspberry Pi as a network firewall. And the concept here is twofold. One, take a computer, make it a Raspberry Pi, make it any other computer that makes you happy, that you can run firewall software on. You can even run this on a Windows machine in theory, but they've got too much junk on them. Okay, Windows Server, but even Windows Server's got a lot of junk on it. You can make a beautifully pared down Linux box. This might be an awesome place for Diet Pi, and certainly for a stripped down version of Raspberry Pi OS, but you can run this on just about any OS that's going to run here because it uses industry standard firewall software. Should we mention some? Why, yes, I think we will. The standard Linux kernel firewall lives in almost all kernels except where it's been stripped out is IP tables. We've taken a look at IP tables in the past. Works fine here. It's good for inbound. It's good for outbound. Terrific. Firewall D, nice user-friendly front end for configuring NetFilter and or IP table firewall rules. Good for Linux, Unix, and that comes as part of Raspberry Pi OS. OpenWRT, that's a Linux distribution. We talked a little bit about him last week when we talked about Raspberry Pi OS. We talked about Raspberry Pi Imager. OpenWRT is not one of the distros that's directly available from Raspberry Pi Imager. You got to download it and burn it to whatever makes you happy. A flash drive, a SD card, an SSD, an external hard drive, whatever makes you happy. And let me get ahead of myself here. I'm going to take you over to that page. I have to go forward or backward here. No. Oh, be darn. It didn't save that thing. Oh, there it is. Here's the page. We go forward, and then we go forward again. So here's the OpenWRT page, and man, this is exciting for me. For years, we have wished and begged that a version of OpenWRT would become available for ARM and or Raspberry Pi. And I don't know when it happened, and dig into the history that close, but there she is in all her beauty. There's different versions supported for different flavors of Raspberry Pi, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, and so forth. And they got a summary. I mentioned this a little bit last week. Hardware highlights. This just talks about differences between some of the different make models. What you need to install it. Here's the images down here. Here's factory image. And that's what we're going to talk about in detail next week. Hey, somebody tell P4EZ to get his hind end online and join us here. He's clearly got the time. Okay, so yeah, OpenWRT, and there's plenty of others, but those are the biggies, and love the idea of using OpenWRT. I did not look into the other industry standard router software, if they've made a Raspberry Pi version of that. But that's the other part of the equation. I got a firewall on here. I've set up inbound and outbound rules. I'll let anything outbound except, whatever weird exceptions. Maybe there's a corporate edict that nobody games a particular game or anything in game port ranges from this port to that port during certain times. We can do that. We can do firewalls at different layers. We can do static firewalls. We can do, well, I didn't spend enough time reviewing terms today, but web firewalls, right? We can do keyword, all those good things. So however I want to set this up, clearly I want to reduce inbound stuff unless I'm setting up a server in the cloud where it's supposed to have inbound. But again, I still don't want inbound stuff for services that I'm not providing. So I do want to block a lot of things with my firewall. And something we should recognize about firewalls, especially if you're in the test-taking realm, whether or not this is an accurate statement in the testing world, by default, we should come to believe that all firewalls are set to block everything. And we use the term exception to unblock something. Okay, whenever you change a default, it's an exception. And if we take it as an article of faith that everything is blocked, exceptions are openings. So maybe I've got, I don't know, a web server running inside my home. And I want people to be able to gain access to it on port 80 and port 443. Then I might have to open up those ports through my network firewall to allow that. But certainly I want everything else closed. I don't want people running around, and I better have pretty darn secure servers on port 80 and on port 443 and have that server locked down pretty hard. All right, so we've met number one. Here's the real trick, because that part's conceptually pretty easy. I have to convince the systems in my network to use this. And that's where we get sock puppets and interpretive dance, and that's where all my slides are really going to come into play next week. Oh, I like this one. So here is a router. This is the router that leads to the internet. It's hooked up to Comcast cable going out that way somehow. How about I take a cable and instead of running it to a switch, I run it to my firewall. So the only thing that it can talk to is my firewall, and the only thing my firewall can talk to is the router. Well, that's useless. How do I get all of these devices, my workstations, my printers, whatever else I have running over here, my servers, to take advantage of this firewall? I can do it. I can run another wire out of here. You should be having some gray clouds, but let's say that for now. Going to a switch. And that switch goes to the devices in my network. Maybe it goes to another wireless device, so I can handle my Wi-Fi devices, a wireless access point. Okay, that's conceptually an excellent idea with just one tiny problem. There's only one network port on this thing. So I don't have two wires here. I can't run one to my system router and one to my switch. We have solutions. I'm glad you asked if there are solutions. Good golly, Miss Molly, there are. Now, I'm going to give you 3 solutions that are possible right now, and these aren't the only games in town. Solution number 1, kind of a pain, but it's kind of something you have to do almost no matter which approach you use. If you do this method that I've described, this is the only one that doesn't require anything, but you need a second network interface so that it's attached to the switch. Everybody sends their traffic to what they believe is the default gateway. In fact, I'll even make this IP address the default gateway. And I'm going to run router software in here as well as firewall software. So stuff comes into here, it gets directed through the firewall software, and then if it's approved, it gets sent out. So that's one way. Take all of your devices and change your default gateway in them from the real default gateway to this. That sounds like a pain. No, because probably most of your devices are DHCP devices. So they're going to get an IP address from a DHCP pool, which I could run in here, or I could run on the real firewall and run DHCP assist in here, or something like that. So it's not a super challenging deal to fix. So that's what we call an inline network firewall. Basically, these machines don't know anything about a firewall. They think that it's a router. They send stuff to it. Stuff goes out. Stuff comes back. The world's a happy place. Method number 2. I can do a single NIC router, or maybe something even better, smarter, stronger, faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my default gateway, and I'm going to hook it up to a switch. And I'm going to take my firewall, and with this one little wire, I'm going to hook that up to the switch. And from the switch, I'm going to go to the hardwired devices or to a wireless access point. Okay, now everybody's online. Now, how do I get all of those things to use this? And what's the downside? Because there is a downside here. Well, what I'm going to do with every device that I have on my system is to configure each one to use a proxy server. This is the proxy server. And I'm going to say proxy server. I don't care who you get input from on this. You're going to check it out through your firewall software, your proxy software, and anything that passes, it's going to go right back out the same wire that it came in on, except the destination IP address is going to be the real default gateway. So here's the problem. I send out a request, a GET request, to some web server out in the cloud. It's google.com. Here I come through the switch. Got a proxy server. It's going to send it to this address. This thing does his magic. He says, yeah, that's an okay thing. Goes back out to the switch and in turn goes back out here. I have doubled the amount of traffic on this local link that I would use if I weren't instead going straight from my machine into the switch, through the switch, and here. But if I did that, then I've got no firewall services unless I had, my own individual firewall service. And what a royal pain that is to set up 500, 1,000 machines. But this is why using a single NIC device can be problematic when you're talking about large amounts of machine. Everything has to come in this NIC. Everything's got to go back out that same NIC. Such is life. So I got 2 more solutions. One, rather than set everybody up to use a proxy server, I'm going to create a couple of VLANs. I still have to do some work on every device out there. I got to give them tagged or untagged VLAN IDs. And this guy with his single NIC he's going to get 2 or maybe 3 VLAN IDs. One, the VLAN that all of my other devices are on. Let's say it's VLAN 20. One, a VLAN that's going to be in the same VLAN as my router. And that's it. They're going to be the only 2 devices on there. So maybe we'll make that VLAN 10. And maybe we'll have an untagged VLAN for traffic that will be allowed to bypass the firewall. Sometimes that's a critical necessity, right? I think I've got a picture of that. The answer is I know that I have a picture of that. Yeah, come on, there you are. Okay, so on the left-hand side of this graphic, can you see the graphic? No, you have to have the graphic right there. All right, so on the left-hand side of this graphic, we've got the internet. We've got our default gateway in a local network. It's orange. They call it internet modem. And I have that on an untagged VLAN and on VLAN 10. Here's my bottom center firewall device with one network interface card, and that network interface card is on 2 different tag VLANs, 10 and 20, and then all my devices on the right-hand side connected via the switch or via a WAP, they're all on VLAN 20. So they can't get directly to the internet modem. The internet modem is only on VLAN 10 or on untagged. So they're on VLAN 20. The only device that they can talk to is each other and the firewall. The firewall will do his magic. He'll do his filtering, and then he'll send it out to the internet modem on the inbound NIC. Now he's going to use it as an outbound NIC and send it out VLAN 10. But cool concept, right? Back to me. Whoops, don't hit that button. Hit this button. So this is the trick of the game, right? We've got these 2 elements. One, I have a firewall. It's a computer running firewall software. Next, I have to convince all of the devices on my network to use that firewall. Now, let's improve the system. There are single board computers out there that aren't Raspberry Pis. Say it ain't so, Joe. Yeah, of course there's banana pies out there, and there's Raxta machines, and there are non-single board computers out there, servers. And one of the things that they have above and beyond this thing, sometimes more powerful processors, sometimes different amounts of RAM. And I don't need a ton of RAM to pull this off, by the way. A couple of gigs, 4 gigs, 8 gigs goes nuts, and I can start building in a bigger network if it has the missing component, a second NIC. Now, Raspberry Pi 4s are good because they have a pair of USB 3 ports that are on their own USB controller. Raspberry Pi 3s and previous, they've got USB 2s, but even as a USB 2, they may be listed as a gigabit port. They're not, because they are controlled by a chip that's also controlling all the other I/O, and you can't get max throughput out of the USB ports, but you can on 4s and 5s. So how about I get a USB to wired interface, plug it into Uncle USB, and I put router software in here. Well, there's our magic of OpenWRT, because OpenWRT is 2 pieces of software, two mints in one. That's a router, and it's got firewall software in there. And of course, I can always set up, if I don't love their firewall software, any of those other firewall packages, IP tables or Firewall D, or whatever makes us happy. And now we take this guy, We send him over to our default gateway. We take the other NIC. He goes into the switch or WAP. That takes care of our internal network. And now we have doubled the capability of this machine as far as devices that it can handle and still provide effective performance. That's what we're talking about today. So what I'm going to do next week is we're going to pick one or two pieces of firewall server software, install it, do one or two one or two rules, and then we will set this up on an artificial network. I don't want to throw this half-baked onto my network and wind up shutting down, losing connection with you. But that's the name of the game. So let me see what you guys might be thinking. Not that. Send you back over here. See what you were talking about while I was talking about that. Maybe you have some thoughts or questions or ideas for improvements. Ooh, yeah, science will never be settled. That's Dave's mantra, unsettled science. And doesn't that make a mockery of science? Of course it doesn't. What do we got going on here? Thought notables replaced IP tables. IP tables is not fully deprecated to my knowledge. Now, I didn't go diving in this week real hard. Can you make me do that? Fine, watch this. IP, I'm not showing it to you on the thing, but IP tables, notable, deprecated. Use my pre-search search engine. IP set and IP tables NFT has been deprecated June 13th. IP set and IP tables NFT package was deprecated in Red Hat 9. Use my work to replace IP tables. Okay, so what I'm getting out of this very speedy zip through, that there are some distros that deprecated. I'm looking here that 4 deprecated versions. I'm looking at the EPEL, the Enhanced Package EL for Fedora and for Rocky and for Red Hat and CentOS. They have IP tables EPEL in the EPEL repository. So you can do legacy packages that still work fine if you still prefer IP tables in those distros. But again, I did check current Raspberry Pi OS, and it does still have IP tables. But that usually is indicative that, you know, IP tables has been around for a long time, and one of its disadvantages is that it's static. Okay, it does ports, it does IP addresses, a couple of other static things, and that's it. Tables, thank you. Yeah. Hello, P4 Easy is here. Thanks for joining us. We're at the end of the game, but I think you might have enjoyed this one, and more so next week when we do more hands-on. Today was a 30,000-foot block overview of how to take a single NIC device and turn it into a network firewall, and further, how to take a multi-NIC device and turn it into a firewall, or how to take a single NIC device and turn it into a multi-NIC device and turn it into a firewall. Yeah, that's heavy magic, right? Let's see if I that page now by. There we go. Okay, reading messages here. 100. Guys, if you're not on our Discord server and you're not there to do malice, join up. Get that link at the very beginning of the show. I have what I think is a brilliant post in the politics section. We're not afraid to do politics on this show, but, you know, keep it civil. That's all the only rule we have. I had a little fun with the Canadian curling teams this week. All right, where are we at here? 100 more easier to unblock certain services instead of blocking most services. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there are 65,535 services. Oh, double that, because you got all those TCP services, you got all those IP services. Oh, how about all the IP addresses? And now we're just talking about static ones. So yeah, definitely easier to block everything. I don't know, you know, this happens in Windows. Were you aware that you have a 100% blocking firewall in your Windows workstation? What happens is every time you install software that needs an opening in the firewall, it does it automatically. What's the point, right? Unless you know it's doing it and you've got to go in and accept that, then you don't have to do anything. But if you don't want to accept it, then you got to go in and fix things the way they want. In cloud networks, you can do something very similar by adding default route to the proxy. Right. Mind you, there's no physical routers. Of course not. That's the nature of the cloud. So routes apply to the entire virtual subnet. Right. Unless we make virtual routers and link them. You can do that with all of the desktop-based VMs. You can do that with hypervisor and with VMware and the one at VirtualBox and Proxmox. Yeah, Shia Moonstone probably ingrained in the kernel. So it's certainly part and parcel of the kernel. You can redo your own Raspberry Pi OS kernel and pull that out if you so chose. But easier just to leave it inactive and put your own preferred one in. But if you want super high security, yeah, you take it out, recompile. Just read that post. I saw your response on that. Curling, I know, curling. No, curling's like 100 years old, though back then it was different. But you know, all the controversy over this week makes you go down the rabbit hole, and so be it. Hosers. Oh, you hosers, eh? Oh, they horked our clothes. Do you not love Strange Brew? Have you not seen it, first of all? If you haven't, you must see it. It's an 80s movie. A couple of guys from Second City TV. Great movie. Basically a takeoff on, Castle Elsinore. What's the... Not Hamlet. What's the Shakespeare with Castle Elsinore? Yeah, so I saw somebody make a post today. We're on our last minute here. We'll wind things up here in a minute and 8 seconds. So it's going to come up perfect. I saw somebody post today that if you're in the U.S., do you know, have you ever met anybody who's ever actually curled? Probably not. I haven't. I would try it. But that argument's thin. I don't know anybody who does giant slalom. I don't know anybody who does luge. Or almost any of these. I don't know any figure skaters. Peripherally, secondhand. But so I think that's kind of a thin argument. But it has been fascinating to watch, huh? I do know hockey players. Hey, I mentioned this last week. Let me finish off with this last sad little bit of trivia for me. I told you that I'm into rugby, into American rugby. The MLR, the Major League Rugby in the U.S., has 10 teams in it. And I discovered when I was going to get my tickets last week for the Houston team, that the Houston team has sat out this year. They lost their money. And also, so I went for the next closest team, New Orleans, the New Orleans Gold. They sat out this year. And so I had to look it up. Does everybody's, the whole league shut down? No. 4 teams suspended operations this year, and there are 6, therefore, left. The 4 teams that are out, my own beloved Houston SaberCats, the New Orleans Gold, the Utah Warriors, and that other team. Okay, it's not Massachusetts. It's neither of the California teams. It's not Chicago. Oh, well, whatever. 4 teams out this year and nobody close to me. Sadness. No, Winter Olympic sports are not that big out there. I got Hoser from that movie. Hey, well, let's wind things up. It has been just a hoot as ever and always. Next week, more part 2 on firewalls. I do love firewalls. Love talking about them. I love the concept. And so I will see you Monday. I wish you a great rest of the week. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. And if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And of course, never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, good night. I'll see you on ADRAMADA on our anniversary show next Monday. And on the other platforms I'm on. Until then, remember, no matter how you do anything is how you do everything. Eat, op, or, ah.